Bless up, my people, and welcome back to the Daily Scoop, where we break down the biggest conversations happening across Jamaican entertainment, dancehall, reggae, and the stories affecting people at home and abroad. If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and select all because we have plenty to talk about today. And trust me, today's discussion is packed. We have Masicka at the center of a major debate following his much discussed interview with Dion Jackson Miller of All Angles. Masicka made some very interesting comments about his relationship with Vybz Cartel, and those comments have caused fans to ask some serious questions. Then we are moving into another developing entertainment story involving Beenie Man and future Fambo. Fambo has now put out a message encouraging people to attend Summer Sizzle, while Beenie Man has also spoken about his relationship with Fambo in a way that has people talking. Mark Golding has visited the community and called for urgent government action, while Andrew Holness and the government are facing pressure over what happened next. And we are going to close out with some important reggae stories, including tribute to Fantan Moja and a major honor for legendary Jamaican singer Derrick Morgan. So, my people, let's get into it. Let's start with Masicka because this interview has generated a serious amount of discussion. Masicka sat down with an interview with Dion Jackson Miller, and the conversation covered several aspects of his career. But one section immediately caught the attention of dancehall fans. The subject was Vybz Cartel. Masicka explained that he and Cartel were never actually close friends. According to Masicka's explanation, the relationship between them was much more distant than many fans assume. He basically said that people often misunderstand the relationship because they see public interaction and assume there must have been a deep friendship behind the scene. But Massicka's version of the event is different, and that is important because for years, fans have created their own narrative about artists based on collaboration, photographs, performance, affiliation, and social media interaction. But sometimes what the public assume is not what actually happened privately. Massicka is now given his version. He says he respects Vybz Cartel, but they were not friends in the way many people believe. And that brings us to the big question. If that's the case, why was Massicka so bothered by Carter showing support for Tammy Lee Sparta? Let's remember the history. Because Tammy Lee has a long-standing connection to Vybz Cartel and the Gaza movement. So when Tommy Lee became involved in a lyrical conflict with Massicka, the situation naturally became bigger than just two artists. Fans started to looking at who was supporting whom, and at some point Cartel apparent interaction with Tommy Lee's social media content became a part of the conversation. Massicka interpreted that as a form of support, and that appears to have influenced how he viewed the situation. But some people are asking if Tammy Lee was actually the person Massicka was directly involved with. Why didn't Massicka focus his attention on Tammy Lee? Why did Cartel become such a major part of the discussion? That is exactly the criticism being raised by some commenters, and it is a fair question to ask because at the end of the day, same time, we have to understand that dancehall is built around alliance. If an artist sees somebody they respect publicly supporting the person they are clashing with, they may interpret that as a taking a side. That's not necessarily proof that the supporter intended to create a personal conflict, but the perception matters. And apparently, Massicka's perception of the situation was a Cartel had chosen a side. This is probably the biggest contradiction that people are debating because Massicka say he and Cartel were not friends. Fine, but if you are not friends, should you expect loyalty from that person? That is the question. Some fans say absolutely not. They believe that if Massicka and Cartel were not close, then Massicka should not have expected Cartel to remain neutral. Others say it is not necessarily about friendship. They argue that Cartel influence within the Gaza movement meant his support for Tammy Lee, carried more weight than the action of an ordinary person. And that is where the situation becomes complicated because Cartel is not just another artist. His public action can influence how fans interpret situation. When he shows support for somebody, people notice. When he does not support somebody, people notice that too. So even something as simple as interacting with a social media post can become a major topic. But we should still be careful not to turn a social media action into proof of somebody's personal intention. Unless Cartel directly say, I did this because I wanted to go against Masicka, we cannot know exactly what was in his mind. As expected, social media was not quite about the situation because some fans defend Masicka. They argue that the artist had every right to explain his side of the story. Others criticize him heavily. Some question his decision to move away from the Gaza identity. Others argue that Masicka evolution was simply a part of growing as an artist. And this is something I want people to understand because an artist's career does not have to remain frozen forever. When an artist starts out, they may associate themselves with a particular group, sound, movement, or audience. But as the years pass by, that artist may develop a completely different identity, and that is normal. So when Masicka decided to focus on his own identity, people were naturally going to have their opinion. Now let's switch gear a bit. Another story getting attention involved Beenie Man and future Fambo. Their relationship has been under discussion following an interaction on stage, and Fambo has now put out a message encouraging people to support his upcoming event Summer Sizzle. Fambo's message was filled with energy and positivity. He made it clear that he wants people to come out and support him, and he also spoke about Beenie Man in a way that suggests that despite whatever tension may exist, there is still some level of appreciation. That is an interesting development because sometimes public disagreement don't completely erase years of history. Two people can have problems and still remember the good times. Beenie Man has also expressed affection and appreciation for Fambo. He acknowledged their history and made it clear that he still has love for him as a fellow entertainer. That does not necessarily mean every problem between them has disappeared, and that is something people need to understand because forgiveness and reconciliation don't always happen overnight. Sometimes people can care about each other and still need distance. Sometimes they can work together again, sometimes they cannot. Either way, forcing the situation is not the answer. If Beenie Man and Fambo eventually reconnect professionally, let it happen naturally. At the end of the day, this is bigger than Beenie Man and Fambo. It is about all people and their relationships after conflict. Entertainment is a small industry. People will work together again. Artists will end up on the same stage. They will attend the same event. They will see each other at the studio. So learning how to coexist is important. You don't have to be best friends with everyone. Sometimes you simply need to respect each other's space. And if there is a chance to rebuild a relationship later, that's something that can happen within time. So Mark Golding, the leader of the People of the National Party, also visited the community of Copperpen. His position was that the immediate priority should be helping the families who were displaced. Golding acknowledged that the land has a complicated legal history, but he argued that whatever the legal dispute, the government has a responsibility to deal with the humanitarian consequences. He called for a permanent relocation solution and assistance for affected residents. He also raised concern about other households that could potentially face similar action. That is important because the conversation cannot stop with the houses that have already been demolished. People are asking what happened next. What happened to families whose home remains standing but whose legal possession is uncertain? What protection exists? And what process should government follow when private property rights come into conflict conflict with vulnerable communities. Now let's move into music again. Jamaica recently came together to remember the life and legacy of Fantan Moja. People who knew him personally described him as energetic, humorous, determined, and full of personality. His musical journey was also highlighted, from his early days performing and developing his craft to becoming one of reggae recognizable voice. Fantan Moja built a distinctive identity, and that is what people often remember about artists after they are gone. Not simply the song, but the personality, the laughter, the stories, the moments behind the scene, the way they made people feel. Those memories become a part of the artist's legacy. So, guys, that is where we are going to be leaving it today. My question to you is, how should Jamaica balance private property rights with the rights of vulnerable communities? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed today's discussion, remember to like this video, subscribe to the Daily Scoop, share with somebody who follow Jamaican entertainment, and turn on the notification bell. Keep the comments respectful even when we disagree. This is the Daily Scoop, bringing you the stories, the conversation, and the issues that everybody is talking about. Until the next video, bless up, stay safe, and walk good.